the time, she was a student at the University of Massachusetts Lowell and played Division I lacrosse at UMass Lowell's women's lacrosse team, the Riverhawks. During the rehabilitation process from her injury, she learned that many young amputees do not receive the financial support to obtain special prostheses, otherwise known as artificial limbs that promote running, swimming, and other sports. Noelle is determined to help other amputees lead fulfilling and active lifestyles. This led to her starting the foundation to provide athletes and young amputees with an opportunity to succeed. After graduating cum laude from UMass Lowell in 2019 with her Bachelor of Criminal Justice, Noelle was determined to use her abilities to try out for the U.S. Paralympic team, being the 100-meter track and field, a sport which she never competed in her life. In the fall of 2019, Noelle made the team and broke the U.S. Women's World Record at the World Para Athletes Championship in Dubai. Noelle trained for the 2021 Olympic Games in Tokyo. She placed 6th in the 100-meter and also broke her own American record. She competed again this past summer at the 2024 Games, finishing 7th with a better time of 15.39 seconds. Noelle says her accident is the best that ever happened to her, and she's able to help others by sharing her experience. She's determined to share the message of hope, determination, perseverance through the Born to Run Foundation. Noelle is a recipient of the Myra Craft Community MVP Award and the Wilma Rudolph Student Athlete Achievement Award, the New England Women's Leadership Award by the Boys and Girls Clubs of Dorchester, Massachusetts. And she was honored by the Boston Celtics as a hero among us for her commitment to help others, and received the World Award for her charitable work in her community. Noelle resides in Manchester, New Hampshire. Lambert also played Survivor in 2022, where she placed 8th. And as a big Survivor fan, that was pretty awesome. She's the first ever player with the club that the amputee to play the game. Without further ado, I will introduce Noelle Lambert.
Hello everyone. How's everyone's night going? I see a Survivor t-shirt right here. Yes, love it already. It is an honor to be here today to be sharing my life story with you all. I have been dealt with a lot of adversity in my life, and have been able to overcome that adversity. I have narrowed it down to 4 simple key lessons. And those lessons are becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable, applying yourself 100% to every single thing that you do, experiencing self-doubt and using it as motivation, and the importance of surrounding yourself with the right team, whether that be your family, friends, basically anybody who can have a positive impact in your life. You want to surround yourself with them. I grew up in Londonderry, New Hampshire, in a wonderful household with incredible parents. I even grew up with 3 older brothers. So all of you can imagine how my childhood went. I was never the girly girl my mother so desperately wanted. Instead, I was always outside wrestling with my brothers in the dirt, showing them who the real boss of the family was. And that's really what drew me to fall in love with being an athlete and being competitive. It was truly the only thing that came naturally to me. In high school, I was a 3-sport varsity athlete playing soccer, basketball, and lacrosse, and my dream was to play a collegiate sport. I earned myself a Division I scholarship to play lacrosse at the University of Massachusetts Lowell, and during my freshman season, I had a standout rookie year. I started every single game, I was the leading point scorer on the team, and I even earned myself a spot in the all-rookie team for my conference. I was extremely excited for my athletic future, and never did I think that summer my life was going to change forever. About a month before returning for my sophomore year, a couple of my friends and I decided we wanted to do one last vacation. So we decided to head to Martha's Vineyard, and when we got there, it was a beautiful Saturday morning, and the only thing we wanted to do was head to the beach. We had no form of transportation, and I remember seeing a moped stand, and I had never driven a moped or have even been on one before, but I thought, how hard could it be? I'll drive. 1 minute, I'm on the main road, headed to the beach, having an incredible time, when the next minute I see a dump truck heading in the opposite direction as me. Because of the weight distribution of the moped, I lost control of it, and I veered left, sideswiping the dump truck, and the next thing I remember is laying on the pavement, lifting up my legs, and realizing that my left leg was completely gone. It was completely severed on the scene. The first thing that I thought of, it was sports, and it was lacrosse. Because I didn't know who I was as a person without being an athlete or being active in some sort of way. So having me laying on the pavement, having all these things happening to me, I was sitting there thinking that my life was over, that I would never be able to play sports again, that I might not even be able to ever walk again. Because I was in the main road, the man that was driving behind me actually took his shirt off to create a tourniquet to stop the bleeding, which is one of the only reasons why I'm standing in front of you all today. He saved my life. I then looked over at this other woman who rushed over asking if we needed any help, and I was lucid enough to give her my parents' phone number. I was completely in shock and the adrenaline was kicking in, so I wasn't feeling any pain. And I looked over at this woman, I gave her the phone number and just said, can you please call my parents and let them know what's happening? I hear her dial the phone number, and the next thing I hear her say is, you need to get to Martha's Vineyard immediately. I don't think your daughter is going to make it. Now yes, I was in a very scary accident and my left leg was gone, but I never personally felt like I was going to die in that moment. So I looked at this woman who was hysterically crying and said, can you please calm down and give me the phone so I can speak to my mother? She hands the phone over to me and I say, Mom, I'm fine. I love you. I lost my leg, I have to go. I handed the phone back over. Imagine getting that type of phone call. When I handed the phone back over, I could hear her screaming hysterically because she did not want me going on a moped, and it was one of those realizations of my parents are always right, I should always listen to my parents, never again I will ever disregard anything they say. But I handed the phone back over, the EMTs had finally arrived on site, and when I was in the ambulance, I was asking all these questions. Where are we going? Are you going to be able to reattach my leg? Am I going to be an amputee for the rest of my life? And he was not answering any of my questions, and that's when I realized that it was probably not going to happen of them being able to attach my leg. When I was at Martha's Vineyard Hospital, they were able to stabilize me, and they told me that I was going to be med-flighted to Boston Medical Center. When I was being wheeled into surgery, when I arrived at Boston Medical Center, I was very fortunate enough to be able to see my parents beforehand. And the surgeon is talking to them, letting them know that I'm stable and that they're just going in for routine surgery to clean everything up. And that's when I realized I was going to be an amputee for the rest of my life. Both of my parents are hugging me, and when my mom was hugging me, all she says was, don't worry, everyone's praying for you. I made a post on Facebook. It's like, thanks Mom, I need the whole world to know that I lost my leg in a moped accident. She's like, no, I didn't say that. I just said, please pray for my baby girl. And I just looked at her, I was like, so everyone thinks I'm dead? Waking up the next day in the hospital, that's really when the emotions started to settle in, and I was hysterically crying in my hospital bed, thinking, what am I going to do with my life now? Who is going to love me? I felt as though I was broken, and that my chances of ever playing lacrosse again, my chances of ever being active or being an athlete again are completely gone. The next person to come and visit me, it was my head coach. And I don't think she took 2 steps in the door before I could ask her, okay, what do I have to do to play again? What do I have to do to get back on the field? Because this cannot be it. I will not allow this to be the rest of my story. And she had a smile on her face. She reassured me that my position on the team was going absolutely nowhere, and that the team and the university were going to be behind me 100% with whatever I needed. So hearing that, I thought to myself, okay, I'm not alone in this. I have an incredible family, incredible friends, a whole community that I can lean on. I then had a lot of the Boston Marathon survivors reaching out, and a few of them coming to visit me. And hearing their stories and everything that they have been through, I could not sit there and feel sorry for myself. Nobody did this to me. I did this to myself. And they were actually the first people to tell me that I would be able to live the active lifestyle that I wanted to live. That I would possibly be able to play lacrosse again. So I was sitting there in that moment and I told myself that I don't want to let this accident define the rest of my life and define the person that I wanted to become. The same time that I was getting home from the hospital was about the same time everyone was returning back for fall classes, for preseason, and I'm thinking to myself while laying in bed, I don't want to be here every single day feeling sorry for myself while all my teammates are at practice and all my friends are having fun. I think the best place for me to be recovering is with my teammates. and showing them the support that they showed me in the hospital. I didn't even have a walking prosthetic yet, and I was driving myself back and forth to campus every single day, just so that I could be there with my teammates. I was also doing online classes because I didn't want to get behind on my schoolwork, on top of doing physical therapy 3 to 4 times a week. I never had time to feel sorry for myself. And honestly, the best thing that I could have ever gifted myself was keeping myself busy, because I never went through a tough depression. I never went through moments where I hated the fact that I was an amputee. But what I did have a lot of time to do when I was sitting on the sidelines every single day was self-reflect about the type of person, the type of athlete I was before my accident. I was the type of athlete, if you threw me into a game scenario, I would run through a brick wall for you. I would do whatever it took to win the game, but if you threw me into practice, I just went through the motions. I was a very lazy athlete because I never put in any extra work, especially after receiving a scholarship. I thought all my hard work was done, it was finished, and that transferred over into the classroom. I never went above and beyond in my schoolwork, and yes, I was still very fortunate enough to get into a great college. I was sitting there on the sidelines without a leg, without a walking prosthetic, without a running blade, with my crutches, thinking, what if I did apply myself? Would I be playing at one of the top Division I programs in the country right now? Would I have even lost my leg? Having all of these what ifs, I was completely ashamed of myself, and I thought, I just went through the motions the first 19 years of my life. I never had to experience hard work or something like a really serious injury. And so now I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, do I even have what it takes to come back from this? And that's when I made another vow to myself that if I ever do get the opportunity to play again, that I would give it 100% effort. I would do whatever it took to get back on that field. 2.5 months after my accident is when I finally received my everyday walking prosthetic. I envisioned it as, okay, I'm going to get my walking prosthetic, I'm going to be able to get my running blade, and I'm going to be able to return to practice within a week. That's when I learned about the cost of a specialized prosthetic, which is a running blade, and how insurance companies will only cover your everyday walking leg, they will not cover a specialized prosthetic. And these specialized prosthetics can range anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 depending on what type of leg you want. I'm 19 years old at the time. I don't have that type of money, and I didn't want to bankrupt my parents every single time I wanted a new and exciting leg. So I was thinking that my chances of ever playing lacrosse again were completely done, because by the time I get this money, I was probably going to be graduated by then. That's when I started learning about all these amazing foundations out there that support amputees like myself. So I started applying to a bunch, and I heard back from one, and they told me they were going to grant me with a running blade, but it was going to be about a 6-month process. So I knew returning for my sophomore season was out of the picture, and I decided to create a different role for myself on the team. I became a student coach. I was at every single practice, every single game. As a teammate and as a student coach, I wanted to create a positive environment on the bench that we were so desperately missing as a young team. And I never personally wanted to hear people sulking, crying, or complaining because they weren't getting enough playing time, because in my eyes, they had the opportunity to show up to practice the next day and to prove that they should be out on that field. I didn't have that opportunity. So I wanted people to look at me and be inspired by me just for standing there and telling them, I believe in you, especially if it was someone who wasn't getting enough playing time. I would light a fire within them so that it would get me motivated, so when I was ready to play, that I would have the support from my teammates. 9 months after my accident is when I finally received my running prosthetic. Now, I was in my physical therapist's office, I was harnessed on a treadmill, and I could not run for more than 10 seconds at a time because it was so unstable, completely uncomfortable, and I was out of shape because I hadn't done anything that entire year. I went home, and I remember throwing my prosthetic legs on the ground and saying, oh, that's it, I'm done, I quit. And I'm having a pity party for myself in my room when my mom walks through the door. And she just looks at me asking, why are you so upset right now? And I'm telling her that everyone is expecting me to return for my junior season, If I can't even run in a straight line, how am I going to be able to play at one of the highest levels that you can play in for collegiate lacrosse? I need to be able to cut back and forth, be able to explode off my prosthetic, be able to backpedal. I can't even run in a straight line. It's impossible. And she looks at me and she just says, "Why are you so worried about the future right now? This is your first day with your running prosthetic. The only things that you can control are this moment and what you are going to do tomorrow. Stop worrying about the bigger goal. What you need to be focusing on are these little goals that will get you to be able to reach your potential and make that big goal come into reach. So what is it that you want to do right now?" And I thought about it and I said, you know what, I just want to learn how to run again. Because if I don't have lacrosse, if I can't play lacrosse, at least I'll be active and I can figure out something else to do. So that entire summer, I didn't even pick up a lacrosse stick. I hired a personal trainer and I started focusing more on short distance runs, short sprints, getting back in the weight room, just basically getting more comfortable with my prosthetic legs. And by the time that summer was over, I had lost about 20 pounds. I was finally starting to feel comfortable and confident, and I thought I was ready for the next steps. So I show up for my junior year, I have a meeting with my coaches, and I simply tell them I'm ready to play, but if I'm going to do this, I need to be pushed, I need to be screamed at, and I need to be treated like everybody else. Because if you treat me like somebody with a disability and somebody who is broken, this is going to be a huge waste of time. First day of practice rolls around, they threw me into a full field scrimmage. Keep in mind, I hadn't picked up a lacrosse stick and ran at the same time, so all of you can imagine how my first practice went. I could not catch a pass if my life depended on it, and I probably fell about 30 or 40 different times. But at the end of practice, I actually had a huge smile on my face because I was back out there with my teammates and I had something to work towards. After continuing this for 2 weeks, I wasn't getting any better. I honestly thought I was getting worse. And I started becoming very self-conscious and I started to doubt myself. And I started to go back to those old ways and those old habits of hiding in drills. But you know, having a prosthetic leg now, it's a lot harder to hide in practice. So my assistant coach picked up on what I was doing and in front of everybody, stopped practice and started screaming at me, saying, "If you don't want to be here, go get your stuff and get off this field and quit. Because you don't deserve the effort that you're putting forth right now, and your teammates don't deserve the effort that you're putting forth right now." And while she was yelling at me, it was like something in my head clicked. And I thought, you know what, she's right. If I want to return playing Division I lacrosse, I need to be putting in twice as much work as everybody else because I have one less leg. And I just needed that one person that I could latch onto to help this dream come true because I knew I couldn't do it on my own. So from that moment on, I would work with my assistant coach before and after practice every single day, just focusing on things that I wasn't comfortable with and I wasn't great at. Shooting drills and footwork, that's the only thing we focused on. And we continued this for about 4 months. And by the time the 4 months was over, it was about the same time that my season for my junior year was about to begin. It was January, and I was getting to the point where I was very comfortable in practice. I didn't have to worry about my prosthetic leg when I was running. I was finally starting to feel confident, but there was still something missing because by the time that season started, I was getting 0 playing time, even in practice. I was not getting any playing time in full field scrimmage, and I was getting very frustrated because I thought I was doing everything possible to get back on that field. What else is there that I need to be doing? I was doing a typical footwork drill with my assistant coach one day after practice, and I just remember dropping my stick, and I started hysterically crying. Something about me after my accident is I was the type of person that put up a wall when it came to me discussing my emotions and how I was dealing with everything. I never wanted people feeling sorry for me. I never wanted people to look at me and feel as though I was broken or I was incapable of doing something. So I would create this image and I would portray it out on my social media that I was okay with my accident. I would use my sense of humor as a coping mechanism. And while that is a really healthy way to deal with a tragedy, what was really unhealthy about it is I was keeping everything bottled up inside to the point where I exploded. And when I was hysterically crying, I remember lifting up my head, expecting my assistant coach to comfort me, and instead she had a huge smile on her face. And she said, "Well, this is what we have been waiting for. We have been waiting for you to let us in. You cannot go through something like this on your own and expect everything to be okay. You need to find that those one or two people that you can rely on." And in my case, it was my assistant coach and it was my mom. Because at that point, I started letting everything out. I was crying for about 4 hours. And when I was done, it felt like I could breathe again and that there was a weight lifted off my shoulders. And from that moment on, it was like something changed. And I didn't feel all this pressure. I wasn't worrying about the wrong things, about when I was gonna play. I just was happy to be there. And because I had the agreement with my coaches that they were not going to tell me when they were going to play me, I needed to warm up and be ready to go just like everybody else every single game. It was about halfway through my junior season. There was about 10 minutes left to go in the first half. And I remember hearing the words from my head coach, "Okay, Noelle, you're in." Instantly started to doubt myself and thought, maybe I'm not ready for this. And then I felt my teammates behind me pushing me on the field, saying, "Noelle, you got this. This is what we've been working towards. We believe in you." So running on the field, I thought, 1, don't trip because that would be very embarrassing. 2, don't worry about the crowd, don't worry about the cameras. Your teammates and your coaches are putting you in this game right now because they feel comfortable and confident that you're gonna help them win this game. So just go out there, treat it like practice, and just have some fun. A couple minutes went by and I had a couple shots on goal and they were both misses. And then I received a perfect pass from behind the net from one of my teammates. And I remember catching the ball, ripping a shot, and seeing the ball go in the back of the net. I dropped my stick and I instantly started to sprint towards my bench. Because I wanted to celebrate with the people that made that moment possible. I wanted to celebrate with the people that never let me use my disability as an excuse or a reason to quit or give up. And they were the sole reason why I was playing. If it was up to me, I probably would have quit after that second week. But to have people be so selfless to push their dreams aside to help my dream come true is the only reason what made that moment so special. And when I look back and I watch the video of me scoring again, the best part about it is not me scoring. It's the reaction that I got from my teammates and my coaches and being embraced by them. And it was the first time when we were all together that I actually started crying in front of everybody. And the only thing I could say was thank you. Returning for my senior year, it was like my accident never even happened. I created a great role for myself on the team. I knew I was never gonna be that player I was before my accident, being the quarterback of the offense, always having the ball on my stick. That wasn't what was important to me at that time. What was important was just overcoming my accident and just never letting it limit me. I was the first above knee amputee to ever play collegiate lacrosse, and I felt like I needed to give back all the support and helping hands that I received and portray the message out to the world that if I could go through something like I went through and still live out my dreams, still play Division I lacrosse, then 100% so can anybody else. And I actually received 3 different specialized prosthetics from 3 different amazing foundations. And seeing the work that those foundations do for other amputees, it really resonated with me and it made me realize that this is something I needed to do. I needed to give it all back. With the help of my incredible family, I was able to start the Borch Run Foundation. And the foundation focuses on donating specialized prosthetics to amputees that just want to live a fun and fulfilling life, that don't have to worry about paying for a costly prosthetic. Graduating in 2019, I did not want to hang up my athletic career just yet. Because in my eyes, I'd only been running for about 2 years. And that's when someone from the US Paralympic track and field world reached out asking if I've ever thought about competing. Fun fact about me, I hated running, hated everything to do with it, never understood it. But I thought this would be an incredible opportunity to represent my country and to see if I could make a career out of this. So I signed myself up for the first track meet that I saw. It was in Arizona and I had about 1 month to train for it. I didn't even have a track coach yet. I was Googling above knee amputees coming out of starting blocks. Nothing was coming up. So by the time the race rolled around, I was, 10% confident in my athletic abilities. But I thought to myself, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Nobody's going to be there. All I have to do is just show up and run in a straight line, see if it's fast enough. I fly to Arizona, and when I landed, I realized the entire U.S. Paralympic National Track and Field team was going to be there, all the head coaches, and I was going to be competing against the reigning national champion. Looked at my mother, who flew with me, and said, "Let's go home, I don't want to do it. I can't do this." And she looks at me, and she says, "I don't care if you crawl across that finish line. You will cross that finish line. We did not fly here for nothing." The night before the race, I was joking around with her, and I said, "Hey Mom, wouldn't it be funny if I won?" My mother is a very realistic person. She completely shot that down. She said, "Noelle, there's no way you're winning this race. Just go into it and be confident, but use her to motivate you to go faster. She's been doing this for 8 years." I was like, "Yeah, you're right, okay." Waking up the day of the race, I don't think I've ever been so nervous about something in my entire life, because growing up I was always a part of team sports. I had never competed in an individual sport before, so having all the pressure be on me was a feeling that I wasn't comfortable with. I show up at the meet, and I'm warming up, and I'm looking around at all the track athletes, especially the females, and I'm looking to see what they're wearing. Track and field female athletes typically don't wear anything when they compete. They literally wear a sports bra and spandex. Me, I am wearing a baggy t-shirt and baggy shorts that say lacrosse all over it. So I already look as though I do not belong. I'm lining up in the starting blocks, completely pale, actually shaking at this point, and the reigning national champion is to my right, and she can see how nervous I am. And she just says, "Don't worry girl, you got this." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. You're gonna be in front of me, you're gonna be motivating me to go faster." When the gun went off, at about halfway through the race, I heard this annoying screeching sound. It was my mother, because I was actually leading. When I crossed the finish line, not only did I win and beat the reigning national champion, but I also hit the qualifying time to be a part of the U.S. Paralympic National Track and Field team in my first race. And why do you think that was possible? Because the 2 years prior to that, I was competing alongside people with 2 legs. Every single time we did a run test, if I came in last place, I had to do 10 burpees. And if anybody else came in last place, they had to do 10 burpees because a girl with 1 leg just beat them. So all of these moments were preparing me for this one race. I am also a very competitive person, and if you tell me I cannot do something, I will die trying to prove you wrong. Getting home from that race, I thought, okay, I'm part of a team again. I need a coach, because I cannot do this on my own. I found a track coach in Boston, and I'm not gonna lie, when I was driving to my first practice, I was pretty confident, and I thought, this is going to be pretty easy because I just won my first race. What else do I have to do? I get to practice and I do my first stride. And my coach looks at me and says, "Dear God, how do you call yourself an athlete?" And I was like, "What'd I do?" He's like, "Well, what are you doing with your arms?" It's like, "Well, I ran with a lacrosse stick for 16 years of my life, so I don't really understand what running form is." He was like, "Well, you're nowhere close to where I thought you were going to be. We have a lot of work to do." I was like, "Oh boy, okay." 3 months later, I qualified for my first World Championship team. It was in Dubai, and I had 0 expectations. I was just excited to be repping Team USA, wearing a Team USA uniform, to be competing alongside the best in the world. When I crossed the finish line, I placed 4th in the world and I broke the American record. And I remember I instantly wanted to call my coach because he didn't travel with me, but he was watching it live. I called back home and I was very excited. "Coach, did you see that? I broke the American record." He said, "Get home immediately, you looked awful. We have work to do." I was like, I can't catch a break with this guy. Getting home, I had about 1 year to train for the Tokyo Paralympic Games in 2020. COVID happens. Tokyo is postponed an entire year. And I honestly viewed it as a blessing in disguise, because I have a whole extra year to train and get better at something that I'm not comfortable with. So I told myself to take every single day and use it to benefit me so that I can be ready come Paralympic trials. Fast forward to 2021 Paralympic trials, I came in first and I punched my ticket to Tokyo. Again, it was a very weird time for me because competing in Tokyo was probably going to be my 6th or 7th time ever competing on a stage like that. And I didn't have a lot of competition experience under my belt. None of my family members could go. Nobody was in the audience. And I, again, had zero expectations. When I crossed the finish line, I placed 6th in the world and I broke my own American record. And while I was very proud of myself, I am a competitor. And I'm looking at that as I didn't come home with a medal. And what can I do to better my chances so by the time 2024 comes around, I'm going to be a different breed of an athlete and I'm going to bring home that medal. Getting home from Tokyo and the Paralympic Games or the Olympic Games, it can be a very challenging time for athletes because you are on the biggest stage that you could be at. You have all of these highs, and then you get home and you're thinking, what do I do now? Because the Olympic and Paralympic Games happen every 4 years. So a lot of people deal with the mental toughness of being not good enough, or you feel as you're not good enough. So I told myself, keep yourself busy. Even if it has nothing to do with track, just start something new. So I decided to learn how to snowboard. I called one of my mentors, Amy Purdy. She's a double below knee amputee, a Paralympic snowboarding medalist. I said, hey, I'm thinking about snowboarding, you have any tips for me? She told me to come out to Colorado and train with her and her husband, because her husband is an adaptive coach. Pack my car up, and my fiance and I, we drive all the way out to Colorado. I was learning how to snowboard for about a month. I don't even want to say training. I was learning how to snowboard and then just thought, what's the best way to just dive right into something? Just start competing. So I headed to Europe and I qualified for my first World Championships in my first season. I placed 4th in the world out of 4 people. Do I view me coming in last as a failure? Absolutely not. I honestly view it as a reason to get better and to grow as an athlete. I was honestly just doing snowboarding to get my mind off of track, but while doing that, I did fall in love with an entirely new sport. And so in the back of my head, I was thinking, should I be a dual athlete? Like, why can't I do this now? Getting home from snowboarding, that's really what I was thinking, that I was going to pick training back up for track and field. But I had something else on the horizon. When I was actually in Tokyo, I received a DM on Instagram, because that's how the whole world communicates nowadays. And it was from the head casting director of a little reality television show called Survivor. And he simply asked, have you ever thought about applying? Another fun fact about me, my mother is the biggest diehard Survivor fan there is, has never missed a season, never missed an episode, forced me into watching it at a very young age, so I became a big Survivor fan. And for years she was telling me, oh my God, you have to apply. And I would just say, Mom, why would I do this to myself? Do you look at these people when they're literally not eating, they're starving to death, you receive no showers, and you're living on an island. It sounds miserable, why would I want to do it? And I kept saying, Mom, I've never seen an above knee amputee on the show before. I don't even know if it's possible, but why would I waste my time applying for something if I don't even have a shot? So when this guy messaged me on Instagram, I thought it was a joke, and I thought my mom had to have something to do with it. But he was honestly just reaching out to a few of us Paralympians, and I was the only one that took it seriously. And I called him, because I wanted to make sure he was real. And once I figured out that he was real, I just said, you realize I'm an amputee? Like, this is not a miscommunication. He's like, yes, Noelle, I have eyes. I can see on your Instagram that you have a prosthetic leg. I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to do the show? He's like, well, we've had amputees on in the past. I'm like, no, you've had 2 below knee amputees on the show before. I am an above knee amputee. And just to be able to do this show, I need 2 different specialized prosthetics. I need my water leg and I need my running blade, because my everyday walking leg, I have to charge it every night, just like everyone charges their cell phones. And I know you're not going to be giving me a little outlet on the island, so I need 2 different specialized prosthetics. He was like, all right, We'll go through the logistics if you get on the show. Just because I'm reaching out to you doesn't automatically solidify your spot. It's like, all right, whatever, I'll go through the casting process. So while I was snowboarding in Europe, I'm going through the whole casting process. It takes about 2 to 3 months, but it's like on and off stuff. And when I got home, and it was end of January, I hadn't really heard anything until it was March of 2022, and the casting director texted me. He said, hey, can you give me a quick call? And I'm thinking to myself, all right, I think I'm off the hook, because I feel like if I'm getting casted on the show of Survivor, it'd be a bigger deal. Jeff Probst would be calling me saying, you're on Survivor! Like, this is too calm. So I call him, and he's like, oh, what are you up to? I'm like, nothing. There's a blizzard outside, I'm just locked in. What are you up to? And he said, well, do you want to leave the blizzard and go to Fiji because you're on season 43 of Survivor? I was like, I have to call you back. Hung up the phone, looked over at my fiance, said, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I can do this. For me to be able to do this show, again, I need 2 different specialized prosthetics, but that's not even the toughest part. When you're out there on the island, you receive 0 food. When I lose weight, that means my leg loses weight. How am I going to be able to keep my prosthetic leg suctioned onto my body while doing all these physically grueling challenges on top of maintaining the perfect social game? How is it going to happen? It's impossible. Prosthetic legs do not mesh well with salt water and sand. They actually tell you to stay away from it. So how am I going to be able to do this? I watched Survivor. I know it's a strategic game. I know anything you do based off your occupation or how you've grown up can be viewed as a threat. I'm immediately going to be looked at as a liability because I have a prosthetic leg, and people are going to question if I can help my tribe win challenges, if I contribute in a positive way. Nobody is going to want to bring me to the end because they think I'm going to get the sympathy vote and that $1 million will just be handed to me. I called the casting producer back, and I'm saying all these excuses to him. And he did not care. He wasn't listening at all. He's like, we'll figure it out. He was like, stop worrying about everybody else and how they're gonna play the game. He was like, you might be first boot, and this might it won't even be worth it. And then when he said that, I thought to myself, you know what? If I don't do this, then who is going to? Who is going to show that positive representation for the amputee community, for the disabled community? This is my chance to show the world what we're capable of. Does that mean I was excited? Absolutely not. I could not sleep the whole month leading up to it after accepting the fact that I was actually going on this show. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen my season, but I won't spoil everything just in case anybody in here has not and they want to go back and watch. But I will say this. I was not the weakest person out there. Every single physical challenge, I found a way to overcome it. I found a way to do it. There are challenges I would take my prosthetic leg completely off, and I would do the whole thing with one leg. I was determined to not only prove to everybody else that I could do the show, but to prove to myself that I was capable of it. And coming home and getting to adapt to the real world again before the show was going to air, I kept telling myself, if I can just help that one person watching that's going through a difficult time, that's an amputee, then this whole experience will be worth it. And when this show was aired live, every single week I would get tons of messages in my DMs of people who are disabled or even people who are just going through a difficult time. And they would say, seeing you on this show and seeing how you believe in yourself is making me believe in myself. I would have parents of kids who are disabled saying every single Wednesday night, my kids point to the TV saying, Mom, she looks like me. Maybe I could do this show one day. And that's what made the whole experience worth it. But when I look back on that experience, it was the best experience of my entire life. Because going through challenges in the real world, I have support. I have people I can lean on with coaches, family, friends. Going off and doing that show, you are completely cut off from the outside world. You turn your cell phone in when you get to LA and you do not get it back until you land back in LA. So when you go off to Fiji, you have nothing. So I thought that it was something that I needed to do for myself to get me to believe in myself, because I do go through self-doubt. Getting home from Survivor and trying to get back in the swing of things with competing, it was definitely tough, because going off and doing that show, I had lost about 25 pounds, all my muscle was gone, and you're just physically and mentally exhausted after doing something like that, because you have to be on all the time while being basically on an empty tank. And when I got back and I was trying to get back into competing, it was tough. And I spent that entire year trying to get back in the swing of things, because we have World Championships in 2023. I show up at Nationals, and when they read the names of the people going to Paris for the 2023 World Championship team, my name was not on that list. And it was one of those moments, my career-defining moments of I had one of two roads that I could take. I could take the first road, retire as an athlete, have a pretty good Paralympic debut and Paralympic career, and be proud that I was able to return playing Division I lacrosse and give up being an athlete. Or I could go down the second road, flip everything upside down, start from scratch, and try to make this Paris 2024 Paralympic team. Me being an athlete and a competitor, obviously I'm going to do the hardest road. So I decided to honestly pick everything up and move out to California of January of this past year. When I got to California, I decided to compete or add in another event that I had never competed in, the long jump. I had one goal in mind when I started long jumping, and it was to jump over 5 meters, which I believe is about 16 and a half feet, because I knew that was my only shot at making this Paris Paralympic team. When I started in January, only 3 above-knee amputee women in the entire world have ever jumped over 5 meters. There have been a lot of people who have gone through their entire careers, have retired as athletes that never touched 5 meters. I am trying to do this in my first season within 7 to 8 months. And I thought that I could do it, because I had a coach in my ear telling me the entire previous year, you need to start long jumping. I'll get you over 5 meters, no problem, no problem. So now that I'm picking up my entire life, leaving my family, moving across the country, I was going to give everything into training. My third long jump competition ever, I believe it was in February, I broke the American record at 4.33 meters, and I honestly looked at that and I wasn't satisfied, because I knew that would not get me to Paris, and I knew that wouldn't bring home a medal. So I kept competing, and every single time I would get a little better each time. In May of this past year, I jumped 5.06 meters, becoming the 4th above-knee amputee to ever reach that 5-meter mark. And from that moment on, the 8 competitions after that, continuously over 5 meters. I show up at Paralympic trials, and everything I did before Paralympic trials does not matter. If you do not compete and you do not get the marks that you need to get, you are not going. Even if you've had this incredible season. I show up at trials, I jump 5.20 meters, which I believe is almost 17 feet. I punch my ticket to Paris. I had about a month and a half before actually heading out to Paris, and it was definitely a different feeling from when I was going into Tokyo compared to now when I'm going into Paris, because going into Paris, I was ranked 2nd in the world in the long jump, and I was in medal contention, and it was mine to lose. When I got to Paris, I had about 2 weeks to acclimate, to get everything that I needed to do to get it all right before I was competing. And my coach and I, we were focusing so much on that world record, because the world record is 5.46 meters. The best that I jumped in the season, it was 5.29 meters, so that's about this in centimeters. So I'm trying to do everything possible to get that extra oomph. I'm working with a prosthetist, and we are changing up my entire alignment. We are changing everything. And that whole 2 weeks, I'm Mentally and physically, I was not feeling great because I was panicking. In practice, I wasn't feeling like everything I was doing before the season even started or before the games. But I told myself, you know, I have no idea how everyone else is going to show up, so just show up and let's try to do this. Long jump competition happens. I'm competing in front of 70,000 people. It was a sold-out arena, and it was the first time I've ever competed in an environment like that. It was electric. It was incredible. I had my family in the stands. I placed 4th in the world, and I was centimeters off that podium. And I'm not going to lie to you, I took it very, very hard because I jumped 4.66 meters, and that was probably my 3rd worst competition of the entire year. And the only person I can blame is myself, because I made the rookie mistake of changing everything on my alignment to try to get a little bit better. And showing up, it was when I'm running down the runway and I'm trying to jump off my prosthetic leg, I wasn't feeling the explosiveness that I'm used to feeling. So obviously that night was very difficult. Well, when I woke up the next morning, I told myself, the sun's still up, and I'm thinking back to what I just accomplished in my first season. And I'm thinking, what I just did in a span of 9 months is something that athletes would kill for. Even if I didn't come home with a medal, I'm here, I'm at the Paralympic Games. The toughest part about that was I knew that if I jumped what I've been jumping all season, I was fighting for a gold medal. I could have brought the gold medal home. But you know what? I have 4 whole extra years to train and to grow in a sport, and I will promise you this. Come LA 2028, I'm bringing home that gold medal because I am sick of not feeling like I am good enough. Thank you, and I'm going to come back here with that gold medal. When you look back and you listen to my story, there is a common theme. I doubt myself before every single new adventure that I try. But how do I get over that self-doubt? I use it as motivation, and I use it to light a fire within me. And I tell myself that if I can't do this, then why should anybody else try? I have that sick thing in my head that's telling me to never give up, to never quit, even when I am doubting myself. Every single person in this room, they go through moments in their lives where it's so uncomfortable and you believe you're not good enough. But what I've come to realize, especially after Paris, is that if I don't believe in myself, then why should anybody else? You should always be your #1 supporter. You should always be your #1 fan. When I look back and I think about my accident, I view it as such a positive, and I view it as something to be grateful for because not only did it change the type of athlete and teammate I was, but it's made me into the person that I am today. And it's made me understand and appreciate hard work and what it takes to achieve something. Because growing up, the first 19 years of my life, I had things handed to me. I did not work hard for anything. Yes, I was still able to get a Division I scholarship, but I never tried hard. I was never that person that was always killing themselves to succeed, because I was very fortunate enough to have a great family that I could rely on, and having something like this just snapped that out of me. Thank you all so much for being such an incredible crowd. I'm so grateful to be able to share my story. I do want to open it up now to you guys. If anybody has any questions about anything, obviously I'm an open book. If you want to talk about Survivor, you want to talk about anything, whatever it is, I would love to answer some questions.
If you want to raise your hands, I will. Meredith? Raise your hand, I'll read it over to you.
Go in the back. Yes.
I'm loud enough, it won't matter. So I know I have quite a few classmates here as well in the physical therapy program, and I know a lot of us are probably wondering, what is something that the rehab team did to help you along? What is something as us as future physical therapists you kind of take away from that and help people in the future?
That is a great question. I would not be here today if it wasn't for my physical therapist. I don't give her the credit that she deserves, because I will tell you this. Sorry. She is the one person in the beginning that believed in me and never let me use it as an excuse. I told her I wanted to play Division I lacrosse. She was putting up cones for me to go in and out with my everyday walking leg. And I'm like, no, she's like, no, I don't care. She never let me use it as an excuse. She never let people use their disability as an excuse. And I know that's gonna be very tough because I did it every single day. She would tell me to do an exercise, she would basically laugh in my face. And that's the kind of relationship I had with her. I respond so well to tough love. And I needed that after my accident, especially people this happens to and they really do believe that their lives are finished, that their lives are done, because it starts with people like you and how you guys don't view people as broken just because they are different. And that's the first experience that I was getting. The reason why I walk so well is because I took the time with physical therapy and I did the movements and the exercises that I needed to do before I got a walking prosthetic. And then when I did get my running blade, I went back to physical therapy. And it was just incredible, everything that she was willing to learn and teach me. She had no idea how to play lacrosse. She was Googling it, and she was putting up cones, and she was doing everything possible to help me feel comfortable. And so I thought that was always incredible. And every amputee, they always ask for advice. My only advice, take the time to go to physical therapy and be serious with it, because that is the only reason why I've been able to get back into practice when I was ready, because I was harnessed on that treadmill for 2 weeks before I even learned how to run on the grass. And that's what I needed. I needed to be patient, I needed to trust the process and trust the people around me, because you guys know a lot more than I did when I became an amputee. I'm not an expert. Just because I lose my leg gets cut off. I'm not automatically overnight thinking, oh, I can't do that just because I have a leg. You guys have seen incredible things just as before anything that I have. So that is an incredible question, and she's sole purpose as my physical therapist, Leanne. I talk about it all the time. I see her all the time. I always go back. I always recommend people to her in that program, and I honestly viewed my physical therapist as my family, because they were giving me that tough love that I needed. They weren't holding my hand doing it. They would tell me to do something, and they would walk away and make sure I was doing it right, and if they didn't, they would yell at me. So if you can sense, or you can kind of understand that they're gonna they can take the tough love, give it to them 100%. Because when someone when you're trying to rattle off excuses as to why you can't do something, and you have someone just listening and be like, I don't care what you say, because you're still gonna do it. That has been the sole reason, and I've been very fortunate enough to have it in a physical therapist, to have it in a personal trainer, and to have it in every single coach that I've ever had. Could be so easy for people to give me a couple exercises to push me aside, but it's the people that take the time and the effort out of their day and their lives to help me achieve my dream. I can never get over it. So everyone give a round of applause for you guys, because I wouldn't be where I am. Sorry, my voice is not cooperating. Yes, right here.
You mentioned that your prosthetic has electronic components. What are they?
That's a great question. He's asking what my prosthetic legs, the components are made of. I have no idea. I honestly just show up and they give them to me. I will say, as a microchip, so what it helps me to do better is walk fluently. Basically, I can ride the knee down, and it's basically pushing it up so that when I step, it doesn't immediately collapse and make me fall. So when I walk down the stairs, I can walk one after the other. If I were to walk with my running blade and walk down the stairs, the knee would give in, I wouldn't be able to do it. That's why lacrosse was so difficult, because if I step back with my running blade and the knee would give in, I can't backpedal, so I needed to learn how to backpedal in a sort of way. So I think that's the reason why. It has Bluetooth. If I turn the leg upside down, it beeps. It doesn't play music though. I'm trying to think, it's insane. So I actually just got this new microprocessor knee. And typically microprocessor knees are not waterproof. The microprocessor knee that I had the first 8 years of me being an amputee, it was not waterproof. But this one actually is. I could go in the chlorine with it, I could go in the salt water with it, which is incredible because it is so annoying going to the beach, having a prosthetic leg in my backpack and having to switch out my legs just so I can go in the water. So now just being able to dive in is incredible. But I do realize that insurance companies don't always cover these for amputees. That's why it's very tricky. If you lose your leg at a certain age, insurance companies will fight you being like, well, I don't believe you need this high tech of a knee. When I argue the complete opposite of that, I say the people that need to be stable are the people that aren't stable with walking and aren't comfortable with it. Like obviously you could give me any walking leg now and I could figure out a way to do it. So that's just the tricky thing about it. And I get it because listen, these legs are not cheap. I don't know how much this one is yet because this one is launching early 2025. But the knee that I had prior to this that wasn't even waterproof, the knee alone without insurance is $40,000. There is a knee out there that is waterproof, has all the bells and whistles that only veterans or high performance athletes use. That's $80,000. So it's insane. And insurance will not cover that type of leg for somebody, but they will cover the $40,000 one that I have, but they did fight me on it at first. They were talking to my mom's insurance, saying, does she really need this? I'm like, I'm 19 years old. What do you mean? Yes, I need the best thing you can give me. So it's understandable why insurance companies try to fight you on it. I mean, it's things that we don't have to go through, but it's a great question. I wish I could give you like more in-depth answers as to why it's so high tech, but I'm not an engineer. I give them a lot of credit. You have another question?
I was wondering if do you have problems with steps? I was going up to Tilson, the staircase, and I was thinking, hey, this might be a little insensitive for somebody.
Honestly, no. Going down the stairs, going down ramps, completely easy, going up ramps. The only time I ever feel like I am an amputee and I am disabled is when I walk upstairs, because I walk up the stairs one at a time. This leg, if I wanted to, like I can move it and it could like really quickly and like I can go one after the other. It just takes time. I'm very impatient. So I just do 2 steps at a time. So I only go up the stairs like with this leg. That's the only time that I ever feel disabled. But other than that, stairs are no problem. I've just gotten to the point where I'm very comfortable and confident when I'm walking, which is great. It's not really that much of a issue. I'm very fortunate to have great prosthetic legs like this. Pretty soon it's going to be attached to my head or my mind. I'm going to be able to move the toes. I'm sure they'll be doing leg transplants eventually, which really freaks me out and I don't want to do it. But I like my prosthetic leg. I think it makes me look cool. I like to cut my leggings, handicap parking, cutting every single line in the airport. That is me. I'm that person when they say anybody wants a pre-board, I'm literally sprinting. Like, yep, me. It's the worst when I get recognized because of Survivor. And they're like, why are you pre-boarding? Like, obviously you don't need a pre-board. I'm like, listen, I got my leg cut off. I'm gonna take the perks, okay? Leave me alone. Any other questions? Yes.
Have you done any more snowboarding? You talked about it, and then...
Yeah, actually, I mean, every winter I do snowboard. I haven't competed since that first season. Actually, my snowboarding coach has been trying to get me to come out for preseason training next week. And has been asking me if I want to compete in the Netherlands at the end of November. I moved out to California all last year, and so getting home from Paris, I'm finally back home. So it's a little difficult for me to find the motivation right now. And the only reason why I got away with it the first time when I was snowboarding is because my first coach didn't have social media, wasn't a social media guy, so I could post all about it, he had no idea what I was doing. My coach now is heavily involved on Instagram, so I couldn't really get away with it. And I think if I had an off year, I have World Championships next year, so I think I'm just gonna focus on that. Now that I've had really great success in the long jump. I was honestly planning, before I even started the long jump, I was planning on having Paris be it, and I was going to retire being a summer athlete, and I was going to do winter full time. But then I had great success with long jump, and I'm thinking, you know, I gotta continue it for LA. Sorry. And yeah, it's mostly just me not wanting to leave quite yet. I mean, he still texts, like, he texted me yesterday, and he was like, you have an answer? And I'm like, I've already told you, I don't really want to do it. And, but never say never. I will snowboard. I think what I want to do this season is actually enjoy it, like get a pass somewhere, and just, I love the free ride. Listen, free riding is so much more different than competing. And, you know, I just give a lot of credit to those athletes. But hey, you never say never. Maybe you might see me in Milan. No, probably not. But I give those athletes a ton of credit. It's very difficult to make a Winter Paralympic team. On top of being a dual athlete, there are very few who have done it, and they do it very well. So maybe one day, but I'm getting older. I need to prioritize my health and what I feel is more important. So my fiance is very upset though. He's a big snowboarder himself, and he wants to be able to go out to Europe and just free ride, but he has no more PTO days, so I don't want to go out by myself. That's the thing. It's like if he works from home, it would be beautiful. Like if he could travel with me everywhere, but that's not the case. And traveling alone is boring, you know. It's like I don't love it. I mean, obviously I'm very fortunate and grateful that I can have that lifestyle, but my mom's done traveling with me. Like I was pulling like teeth trying to get both of my parents to come to Paris. My dad thinks when he goes on vacation he's going to Florida. Like he does not fly to Europe. He is not the Europe type. So it was great having everybody there, but it was definitely really funny. Any other questions? Yes. Need the microphone?
Okay, so I know that you said like when you were in the hospital you were kind of questioning like how will someone love you, but I see that you mentioned that you have a fiance.
Yes.
So like how did that happen, and like how do you feel about that, and how did it progress?
Yeah.
Did you have any like mental struggles?
That's another great question. Yeah, so I don't typically talk about it in my speech just because it's like a long story. Not really a long story, but so I met my fiance. I went back to my old high school and I gave a speech, and his two younger siblings were actually in the audience. And he grew up in the town over from me, and when he was in high school, that town doesn't have its own high school. They have a contract, and they had to go to one specific school, but then they tore up the contract, and you could choose what school district you go to, so that's why his two younger siblings went to my high school. And after the speech, I guess his younger brother went home and told him about me, and it was very funny because I think he literally said, hey, this girl spoke at my school, she has one leg and she's hot, you should reach out to her. Like, pink and so I had the brother and my now fiance, they both followed me on Instagram, they both liked different pictures of mine. So I took a screenshot of that, I sent it to him, and I was like, damn, who do I pick? You know, like I got the young calf or like the old bull or something. What's that quote from Step Brothers? And then we were just talking, but I hadn't been in a serious relationship like after my accident, and this was in 2020 that I was actually starting to talk to him. Like it was 4 years after my accident, because I never wanted to get into a relationship after, because I felt as though like I needed to love myself before I could allow anybody else to love me. I felt like that was fair, and I was terrified because I was single when my accident happened. It's not like I had a relationship with him beforehand, and I think it was just kind of the way that he was with me and like the way I was with him. I was very open about it, and then it wasn't a topic. Obviously, it was scary in the beginning because I'm trying to be normal, like I'm trying not to make it seem like a big deal, but he was that type of person that did not care the second he saw it. He knew who I was beforehand, which was amazing. which that's why it's like, finding him afterwards, I consider myself so lucky in finding someone like him, because he's the most supportive person that I ever could have ever had in my, more than I deserve, honestly. I'm a very tough person to deal with, I'm very impatient, very stubborn, but he's like everything that I'm not in a beautiful way. But I think what he did is he just treated it like it wasn't a big deal, and he would ask me questions about it, and I think it was just how I came across with him. I think a lot of people, it's like, yeah, not everybody's an amputee, not everyone has a disability, but everybody has something that they're insecure about. And I think kind of how I deal with my insecurities is I put them out in the open, and I use my sense of humor. Obviously everybody's different and nobody's going to be that way, but if you're open about something and you're comfortable with it, being comfortable and confident is a turn on for so many people. It's like, oh my God, this girl is so confident, even if I'm not the best looking or I'm not the most normal, I have a disability, I'm confident in myself, and I just portrayed that out to him, and that's what I got in return. And it was beautiful because I'm so grateful that I was able to find him, because my lifestyle is not easy. I mean, I'm picking up and going. In California, he was flying back and forth all the time because he was in the office 1 week out of the month. So it was great to have him be able to travel with me, but it was definitely tough at times because I would be sick of traveling back and forth from California. But yeah, so our relationship fell into our laps kind of during COVID. And that's why, like, when I look back on COVID, it wasn't so terrible because, I went through it with him and got to experience it with him. So, very grateful. The wedding is next September. It's been a long engagement, but we're gonna finally cross the finish line. My mom is having a great time planning my wedding right now. I am not doing that. I have no interest in doing that. Just tell me a date and a time, I will be there. We went wedding dress shopping last week, and I'm trying all these dresses, and I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, they're like all the same to me. My mom, I'm the only girl, so she can have fun planning that wedding. I'm gonna plan the party and have a good time. Listen though, this guest list, I don't know how people cut people. I'm touching 300 right now, and it's like I cannot have 300 people at a wedding. I don't want to pay for it. So 250, that's what we're hoping for. And I'm gonna send out the save the date last minute, so a lot of people, hopefully nobody can come. Yes.
I really need to know, what would your advice be for applying to and playing Survivor? I'm a huge fan, and I just was so excited to see you come and speak. So
Yes, great question. Okay, so I was recruited, and so I will say that, but I have learned things from other players who have been, I don't know if you remember Lindsay from my season, she's literally been trying ever since the show aired. Like, literally would send an application after application. I think the biggest thing that they want to see is they just want to see who you are, and they want to see a loud, energetic personality. They want to know that you can have a camera put in front of you, and you're not going to clam up. They want to know, they don't care if you're a Survivor fan. Honestly, even though everybody who does the show is a diehard Survivor fan nowadays, but they don't want you to waste your time in the video talking about how big of a Survivor fan you are. You have to reel them in the first 15 to 20 seconds. And my advice is to go back and go on YouTube and think of like iconic Survivor players. Don't look at me because, or don't search my name because I made my application video private because it was literally the worst thing that you could ever see in your entire life. But look at iconic Survivor players and their application videos and see what they do in the first like 20, 30 seconds. I will say Cody from my season, the Hawaiian dude, he submitted the video. I believe he got a call back within 24 hours because it was that good. And this dude does not watch Survivor. He watched maybe a half a season and went out there. And listen, he was one of the best players on our season because he was like, everything they said on the Survivor season, he was like, wait, what do we gotta do? What do we have to do? And it was just like kind of refreshing. But just have fun with it. Don't take it so seriously. Find something or bring up something that you're passionate about and show how you're passionate about it. They want to know that they can put a storyteller on national television. That's basically what it is. And then if you do get the call back and going through all the rounds, basically just be prepared to say the same things over and over and over again. Even if you're talking to the same people, show that same energy, and they actually told me that it was okay to swear because they felt it loosened you up. So they said, please swear if it's going to loosen you up, if it's going to make you feel comfortable. So something like that. I mean, it was very uncomfortable when I'm screaming on a Zoom interview in my parents' living room, saying F this, F that, in front of Jeff Probst, but hey, they liked it, I guess. But that's my advice. Honestly, it's like find something that you can talk to or like tell a story in a beautifully funny way and it will get their attention. Again, I am not the expert because my video was not great. I think the head casting director called me and he was like, yeah, it's fine, but like, I'm just gonna call you and press record and ask you questions. So I was very lucky because I had him, but I think the best thing to do is just YouTube videos of your favorite Survivor contestants. If you could find Cody's, incredible. Literally, he's like, again, he's in Hawaii and he had a drone, he's in a cowboy suit on a jetty in the middle of Hawaii. So like, obvious, that's not why they liked him. Like they liked him because they could see his personality within the first 10 seconds and they were like, we have to have this guy on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Of course, thank you all so much for having me.
So now, if you didn't get a chance to ask a question, we're going to go to the McKee Family Heritage Lounge. And if you want to go in there, I'm sure she'll be happy to take a quick photo and maybe sign an autograph if you'd like.
So thank you all so much again.
Thank you.